Hello and welcome back to the Hurling Show. We're here every Friday at 1 p.m. in association with Boyle Sports on Off the Ball. For all of our Off the Ball special offers for our listeners and watcher viewers, go to offtheball.com/Boyle Sports. I'm Shane Stapleton. With me this week I have Michael Verney. You're back. How are you doing, Michael?
Good to be back, Shane. Yeah, I took a little week's break there, refreshed now and ready to go.
Yeah, we were like Westlife here, myself, Derek Honan and Jamie Wall last week. Were you watching from afar?
I was watching it alright, yeah. To be honest with you, I'd be a big kind of boy band fan, and I think any male who says he's not a boy band fan is probably in denial. So I think I quite liked it. Yeah, very white.
Right. Okay. Well, we can't move on without asking you, who are your boy band favourites?
The Backstreet Boys would be, in fairness. Did a little karaoke before Christmas. Did a Backstreet Boys number. Yeah.
Yeah. What's that?
Everybody.
Yeah.
It's brilliant tune.
Did you nail it?
Yeah, the crowd were involved. When I saw the barman was like that behind the bar, I knew we were going okay.
I'd have gone with Larger Than Life myself.
Yeah, we actually did that for the final, actually. Yeah.
Did you win?
No, I think we were 4th of 16th. 16, well, not too bad.
That's not too bad. That's Champions League.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Over Skype as well, we have Jamesie O'Connor. Jamesie, how are you doing?
Not too bad, lads. Not too bad.
Yeah. What sort of boy bands are you into?
Oh, Jesus. Do Radiohead qualify as a boy band, lads?
They really don't. I mean, they're unbelievable, especially that album, The Bends, but nah, they don't count. Come on, Jamesie, give us something here.
No, lads, not going there. Blur, Arcade Fire.
That is so safe. You're such an indie guy. I didn't realise that he was going to be an indie guy. Last week, Clare absolutely hammered Limerick, 11 points. Jamesie, would you say now all of a sudden that Clare are All-Ireland contenders?
I suppose they are, Shane. I mean, listen, the question was, could they build on, I suppose, on the momentum that they got from the Tipperary match, and the answer was yes. And things look an awful lot more promising than they did a month ago when, we went down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh and could have won the match and maybe left it after us. And you're wondering then where do we stand, because everybody's under pressure, and Waterford are coming to Ennis fresh and rested. But yeah, it's been a transformation in the last 3 weeks, and there's a real buzz about the county now. The team are playing well. I still think they have it all to do in the Munster final, though. I mean, I think if you're a Cork player, you're probably pretty pissed off hearing all this talk about Clare and, that Clare are All-Ireland contenders and Cork maybe don't merit the same consideration. But, like, Cork were level with Clare with 10 minutes to go, saw it out, went to Thurles. Yeah, again, obviously Tip all the momentum in the second half and still Tip were the ones having to get the equaliser. Limerick, again, they were 3 points down in a bit of a hole in the second half, and Limerick were the ones getting the equaliser, and they dug it out again last Sunday. So I think if you're a Cork player, as I said, you're kind of wondering, where's the respect? And, I think Clare and the Clare management have a job to do now to kind of get the players down from, the high of the last couple of weeks and get them ready and refocus, because it's going to be a big, big challenge.
Because expectation is a huge thing. We saw that Limerick, perhaps expectation was a big part last weekend, maybe playing the 3 weeks in a row, and their manager of the under-21s during the week was talking about the toll that would have taken on the likes of Kyle Hayes and Seamus Flanagan. For Clare, interestingly enough, they've only beaten Cork once since 1998. That was the 2013 All-Ireland final. So do you think that expectation now on Clare could actually hamper them?
Well, I think, Clare are probably 4 or 5 years on age-wise from, the Limerick. I think they're a more seasoned team. Obviously, they've been there in 2013, Shane. And, we were in the Munster final last year and, got caught up maybe in tactics and that kind of stuff. So, I don't think the Clare lads, I think they're a mature bunch. You've I suppose, the management that's been through a lot of minor 21 level, and obviously they've got the experience now of last year as well. So, look, I think Clare will be focused and ready to go. But, as I said, Limerick, certainly that hype didn't help last week, and all the talk about Croke Park. I think, as I said, the Clare lads have experienced more than their fair share of disappointments over the last 2 years, to make those kind of mistakes. And as I said, I think Clare will be focused and ready. But as I said, I still think it's a 50-50 game, and I don't think we're going to get caught up in this hype to the extent that Limerick did. But that's not John Kiley or the management's fault either. It's just hard to insulate yourself sometimes from when that's all around you. And I think Clare people as well. Okay, we've a deal of optimism now that we didn't have maybe at the start of the year, but certainly I think people as well have been realistic and know that, look at it, we're going to have to perform to win.
Michael, we'll come to Clare as well, but your thoughts on Clare. But Limerick, you're wearing their colours today. Where do you think it went wrong for them?
I think going down to 14 definitely didn't help them, because I think they were a tired team kind of going into the game, and they looked tired. They kind of got bottled up on the half-forward line, which is really kind of that's the working line for them. They drop back and kind of take off some of the pressure off the defence, and they just kind of weren't able to get there. Gerard Hegarty, Kyle Hayes looked tired last night as well. They just weren't able to get their bodies in the positions that they had been the few weeks before that. I think people there's probably a little dose of realism needed with Limerick as well. Like, the performances in their first three games were superb, and now fair enough they were poor the other day, but I think it was a lot to do with energy levels and a lot to do with what Clare brought to the table as well. I definitely wouldn't be writing Limerick off, and I still think they're in a very good position. Losing Sean Finn would have been a loss. Even Tom Condon getting sent off then as well. The defence had to be rejigged an awful lot, and the scoreline was probably a bit flattering. Like, they were there or thereabouts with 10 or 15 minutes to go. Probably just tired, in my opinion. I still think they're definitely in the equation, more so than Clare, to be honest.
Without the two Morrissey brothers, Dan and Tom, I don't know where Limerick would have been in that game. I thought they were both get 8 out of 10 performances. I thought they were very poor. Clare managed to have Jamie Shanahan as the sweeper, and I was looking at the other end for Limerick, and it cycled around through a few different guys. I'd imagine they wanted Declan Hannon as the spare man, but maybe Clare didn't allow that scenario. At one stage it was Richie English, and I don't know, I just thought Clare were a bit smarter. And to be honest, I was kind of shocked. Like, do you see them now as shocked that they won so well? But do you see them now as All-Ireland contenders? Like, that first half, Tony Kelly wasn't really involved. John Conlon was the only forward, I think, that scored from play. And then all of a sudden, they all went to town in the second half.
Yeah, All-Ireland contenders is probably a bit much. I think, like Jamesie said there, I think they'll do well to win the Munster final, to be honest. Cork have been impressive enough, and again saw out the game the other day when it didn't look like they were going to see out the game. I think Cork are probably a little step ahead. It'd be funny, like, just to see, not funny, like, but will Clare, will they be losing the run of themselves now, or will they be able to keep their feet on the ground? That'll be kind of interesting to see. But I still would have Limerick slightly ahead of Clare in the pecking order.
Jamesie, it'll be a first Munster title for Clare in 20 years. Now, I was going through the stats during the week. How many different men have lifted the Munster Cup for Clare down through the years?
2.
No, come on, it's more than that. No, well, Anthony Daly did it 3 times, 95, 97 and 98, which obviously upset me as a tip man. Other than that, in total...
Yeah, well, this is 1914 and 1932, is it? And did they win one in between?
You're going to claim 1889 as well. John Considine lifted it after he got a walkover against Kerry. I'm sure you're still going on about that one.
Yeah.
So far it's John Considine, Amby Power, John Joe Doyle in 1932 and Anthony Daly. Yeah, and actually, interestingly, Cork centre-back Mark Ellis, who missed the game against Waterford, he actually, a couple of years ago, he was talking about his Clare background, and his mother is from Tulla, and he said one of his big inspirations growing up was Shawnee McMahon, and he also name-checked you. So are you delighted to know that you've inspired the enemy?
Yeah, thrilled, yeah. Listen, I mean, I suppose no more than anybody, when you're growing up, I mean, there's a lot of Clare guys that obviously would have, admired Tommy Walsh and Shefflin and JJ and those guys, or the Ben O'Connors and the Sean O'Halbeans. So whatever era you're growing up in, I suppose they're the guys. Whoever's winning the All Irelands are the guys that you're probably modelling yourself on or looking up at. I mean, listen, Shane, I grew up, idolising Joe Cooney and Éanna Ryan and that fantastic Galway team in the late 80s. We had Galway connections and lived in Galway for 10 years, and Clare were at a low ebb, so they were my heroes. So it's nice to hear that Ellis is number 1 Clare connections. I didn't know that. Number 2, that he, I suppose Shawnee was the guy that they all kind of idolised.
And just looking ahead to the Munster final, we're a bit out from it just yet. But are there any matchups that you'd be looking forward to, particularly in that game, or where would you see it being won and lost?
I think like Clare in the first game, went man for man, Shane, on the puck outs, and Cork created a lot of space. They dragged, would say, the three half backs into the middle, and then broke left to right, and Nash found a space in those pockets of space. And the midfielders, Bill Cooper, for example, picked up Tony Kelly. He's a pretty good record on Tony, so those kind of things. And like looking at Limerick, particularly on the Cork puck out, they adopted a more zonal kind of approach. I mean, for example, Burns was quite happy to let Daniel Carney off out the field, and let when the midfielders or the half forwards kind of worry about him, and he kind of held his position, which kind of took away one side of the field. And I'm just going to be interesting to see, okay, what have Clare learned, from those other games? What are they going to do in the Cork puck out? Because last year, I think we got obsessed about it and stopping it, and tied ourselves up in knots. And Nash just went short all the time, and Demi Cahalan carried it 45-50 metres, and suddenly it was inside in our full back line. And anytime the ball is inside in your full back line, as it was or appeared to be all day, you're in trouble. So that's to me is one of the key things, because like Donal Maloney and Jerry O'Connor learn and learn fast, and that's been one of the hallmarks of their management tenure, both at minor 21 and obviously senior level. So I suppose look at who picks up Horgan, who picks up Harnedy. What do Cork do to maybe create maybe a few more goal opportunities that is probably still one thing maybe holding them back from been I suppose a team that people might fear. So those kind of things I think are the key things. I think John Conlon as well on the edge of the square is something that Clare have maybe stumbled on or fallen on, because he was deadly against Waterford. I mean, he was really good against Cork on the 40. He got 5 points from play that day, but I mean, he was devastating against Waterford. And again, he was a real handful last Sunday and caused problems for Tip as well. So Cork are going to have to count for him. So there's a few different things that as it won't be the same from the drawn encounter, and that's what I was really looking forward to, Shane, to see who gets the matchups right. Who finds maybe the mismatches. Kelly, for example, if he's playing centre forward, it's a different problem than if he's playing midfield. And I said Bill Cooper has a pretty good record on him. So those are probably the key things that I'm looking forward to.
So those are the teams. We've discussed the 3 teams that are still in the reckoning from Munster. Earlier in the week I caught up with Tipperary's own Kelly to talk about Tip, and also to talk about Galway and their challenge of retaining the All-Ireland. Well, for a team like Galway looking to go back to back, I mean, you've been there with Tipperary before, how difficult is it going to be? Because at the moment it looks like everything's rosy in the garden.
Yeah, that's the obstacle they're going to have to overcome, and it's the hype, it's the talk, it's everyone in Galway and outside saying, look, Galway after steamrolling through the Leinster campaign, that they seem to be the big, strong, physical team, that they're outpowering everybody, and you've the Kilkennys and these teams waiting in the wings, listening to this, and they've dealt with that before when someone has what they consider their titles. It really gets that hunger going in them. So it's a big obstacle for Galway, but so far they've managed it perfect, and I think being in 1B in the league really set them up, that they didn't have to maybe start all that pre-season training very early. And look, whatever way Micheál Donohue has managed his troops since then has been excellent, but look, there's no All-Ireland final one in the summer months, so it's going to be interesting to see come August now where they are.
Can you tell me about Micheál Donohue, because you would have worked with him when he was involved with Eamon O'Shea with Tipperary?
Yeah, I suppose I worked with him for a season, and probably the season he was in there, he probably done a lot more listening maybe than actually carrying out any actions, we'll say, from a coaching perspective. But he definitely got the respect of the players, and I was gone then the year after, I think 2015, the players will tell you that he became more involved and more vocal. So look, his experience with Clare and Bridge winning the Club All-Ireland final, he's an All-Ireland winning manager with Galway, so I suppose he's in a perfect position now, because going into any inter-county job, once you have success, it probably gives you more scope and more room with the county board to look for strength and conditioning coaches and to get that bit extra for the players, and he seems to have it right at the moment.
It'd be remiss not to mention the 2 Munster counties that are gone. Tipperary gone, Waterford, who were last year's All-Ireland finalists, and Tip being the All-Ireland champions the year before. Is there anything common between the 2 of them that's got wrong, or are they just totally different cases?
Probably totally different cases. Waterford's wasn't really predicted before the start of the championship that there was a hangover there from the All-Ireland. Their league wasn't good. Then they just hit with the injuries, which crippled them. Even though the day against Tipperary, you would have thought that they had found a couple of new players and a different way of playing. But I think Waterford, the hangover from last year's All-Ireland final, was kind of still there this season, and I suppose Derek put all his eggs into the championship basket, and with the injuries that didn't work out. So he'd probably like to rectify that if he had it all over again. But with Tipperary, it would probably be a massive surprise, we'll say. Getting to the league final, you're saying after finding a few new players, but I think from the league kind of semi-final, final on, it just looked that things maybe weren't right, and that we hadn't probably settled on the defence for me, which turned out to be something that when you don't get that right, like talking about systems, talking about plans, it's hard when you don't know what your defence is, or when you're settled on that. So I thought that probably led into maybe jumpy performances, and that's what we've seen during the year.
Yes, a lot of people would be talking, like like Babs Keaton was saying, get rid of him. After the game I asked Michael, are you going to stay around next year? And he definitely was even a little bit burned by that, but I suppose it's a case of just doing your job. You have to ask these questions when it's disappointing. So for Michael Ryan, it's not necessarily like a case of whether he should stay or go. It's a case of, does he need to embrace tactics a little bit more and see how Tip are set up and look at how the opposition sets up? Is that where Tip are falling short?
Well, as I said to you, I think it was setting up the defence maybe for me, like, you know, so before you embrace tactics or talk about systems, I think you need a settled six.
Is that not a tactic? Oh, well, like, do you like setting up your six and picking who goes where is, I suppose, part of it too?
Well, it is, but if you're, like, I know, right, you have to have a squad embraced into what way your system of play and that is, but you look, for all good teams that are successful, they know their six, they have a fair idea of their six, we'll say, you know, right, you might have an injury a given day, you know who's going to replace him, like, so you have to start back there. And so to answer your question, like, I thought it was a bit premature, lad, saying the day after that Michael Ryan has to make a decision or whatever. You know, let the dust settle, we'll say. You know, it's raw with him as well as Tipperary players, supporters, you know, and there's a massive disappointment there, and he'll be the first to admit that. Like, so, you know, let the dust settle. You know, he was given 2 or 3 years a couple of years ago by the county board, we'll say, so they've come out and backed him, like, so I think Michael, look, he's going to sit down now, he's going to stew on it and just see, maybe is he the right man going forward, does he need to replace his backroom team, he's going to see what he needs to do, because, you know, he did hint after the game that putting the emphasis into the league, and even with Tip's club championship, like, there was 2 or 3 games played in April when you had the likes of Clare maybe didn't play any games, so, you know, there's a few things that need to be probably looked at, and there's a few things even out of his control, like 32 or 33 senior teams in Tipperary, or 30, whatever it is. You know, for me, that's too many to have a competitive club environment, like, and I have often said that the day that you see tip teams contesting junior and intermediate club All-Irelands, we'll know then we have a proper senior championship, but you can't change these things overnight, but, you know, it's just it's something I'd like to see changed.
Yeah, explain the Tipperary Club Championship is an unenviable task, I would say. So that's Owen Kelly talking on Tipperary. Jamesie, just the other team from Munster that are gone. Waterford, valiant against Cork, very close towards the end. Tommy Ryan scored one of the great goals. Always unbelievable.
You tweeted too early watching the Sunday game.
Yeah, because obviously I hadn't seen the game and I was tweeting a load of love for Tommy Ryan, and then he ends up getting blocked down.
He was brilliant before that, now, in fairness.
He was, and he followed me on Twitter afterwards as well, so Tommy, thanks for that. But just a word on Derek McGrath, Jamesie. What do you think his legacy is there?
I think, Shane, the key thing is, I mean, you know, did he leave the position in a better, or Waterford in a better place than when he took on the job? And I think the answer to that question is definitely yes. I mean, I was there in Ennis in 2014 when, you know, they came up in the league and Clare absolutely filleted them. You know, Shane O'Donnell and Conor McGran, these guys were, you know, operating in space. The Waterford half-backs were a mile from the full back line, and, you know, I mean, I can't remember what the score was at half time, but I mean, it was a sobering experience, and I think Wexford knocked them out of the championship in the qualifier. So, you know, I mean, you're in a pretty dark place, and you're questioning yourself and questioning, you know, the responsibility, I suppose, you have to the supporters, to the players, and all that. And you know, they respond by coming back and winning the league in 2015. Probably should have won the league in 2016 in an All-Ireland semi-final, narrowly beaten, probably had Kilkenny on the rack and didn't see it out. Back in the All-Ireland semi-final the following year, again, very close to winning it, and they're obviously in the final last year. So, I mean, you know, they've had a lot of big days. Okay, the silverware hasn't been there, but I think he's got the best out of that bunch of Waterford players. And, you know, I think, you know, I heard some stuff that, you know, he was a failure and this kind of stuff during the week and hadn't delivered on silverware. But I mean, not everybody wins the All-Ireland, and, you know, you could argue that there's more talent in the Tipperary dressing room and the Galway dressing room, and you know, they've won All-Ireland to show for the same time frame. Clare have nothing to show for us, because that 5-year period that Derek was in charge. You know, Cork have a Munster title. So I think, look at, you know, the way the players spoke about him, I think he's, you know, he did a seriously good job. And obviously this year wasn't the way he would have wanted it to end. But I mean, the injuries just absolutely crippled him. And people forget they were 1-4 to 3 points up in Ennis against Clare. Burke went down. Kevin Moran had a great chance shortly after that. Should have put them 7 clear, and it would have been a totally different ball game. Instead, John Conlon goes up the other end and I think was pulled down for the penalty. It's back to a point, and then they just start dropping like flies. You know, they lost obviously Darragh Fies, and Noel Connors went off at half time. Brick obviously wasn't fit, and they didn't have Gleeson or Pádraig Mahoney. So, you know, I think in hindsight, I think he did a good job. I think he got the best out of the players that he available to him. And I suppose the respect that the Waterford players had for him, there was no better illustration of that than Thurles last Sunday, when there was nothing to play for. They could easily have gone on the beer for the week. And yet the way, I suppose, they honoured him, and I suppose the way he spoke about protecting the integrity of the competition, and I suppose the way they honoured Brick, was unbelievable, because they could have won that match. And don't forget as well, they were absolutely robbed, Shane, by that decision in Limerick,
100%.
which would have meant that it was all on the line last Sunday. So I suppose sometimes too you need that bit of luck, and he certainly didn't have it in 2018.
And like, when you consider as well, Michael, that this is a guy who came in 2014, and Jamesie referenced that game against Clare. I think Clare scored 5-22, and I remember
4-18 or something ridiculous scored after 25 minutes or something.
And then after the game, I was still writing my article probably an hour after the game, and I could hear shouts coming up through the concrete in the stand. They were hating the players, I presume, and trying to get them going. And when you consider that, and the fact that they cut a lot of the experienced players from the panel at the end of 2014, they went with the sweeper. You constantly had the legendary names from a decade before chipping away, and Derek would talk about how he didn't feel that he had it in the bank as a hurler. He had Dan Shanahan beside him as hurler of the year from 2007, which was brilliant for him, but he probably would have had self-doubts that way. For him to come through all of those obstacles that I've just listed out and produce those massive days and get Waterford to an All-Ireland final, I would see that as a massive success.
Unbelievable, yeah. I think it's just headline grabbing to say that he was a failure in any way. You cannot say that. And what Jamesie said there is someone else is going to benefit from what he did, 100%.
Maybe Sean Power.
Possibly, if they get the right setup in place, someone else will definitely benefit. I have no doubt in saying that at all. I've never seen as much, maybe love is the wrong word to use, but Jesus, like the players, the admiration they have for him. He was, as Noel McGrath said, or Noel Connor said, he was more than a manager, and he clearly was. And he's created, the word culture is probably overused, but he's like, they looked like such a happy bunch, we'll say, and someone else would definitely benefit from what he did. And there was so many things pulling against him, as you say, people knocking the sweeper system, people wanting him to go back playing orthodox style. They win the under 21 All-Ireland in 16, and they want to say, why can't we just play like that, why can't we just go 15 on 15? But he got the best out of the group of players that he had. They're going to be at a different stage next year or the year after, and someone else I think might be able to bring a bit further. But let's not forget, beating 3 points in an All-Ireland final, Conor Gleeson probably, I think, their best defender, not on the field as well. Like, they were very close to winning All-Ireland last year.
Shane Bennett going off injured.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Tom Devine not
and that forced their hand because Morris had to come on early. And this year, it's so disappointing, I think, for anyone watching hurling, just to see the chain of events that happened for him. And just, you say about the kind of rollicking that he gave down in Clare that day. I was at the game in Cork this year where they beat Cork in the league, and they're kind of nearly kind of half kind of gave himself a bit of life in the league, and he came in and he was very calm with us, and I was waiting to try and grab a player after, and like literally if the walls could talk in there, like the place was absolutely hopping. It's just like, it was funny to see, you could hear it all, and it's funny to see him being so calm and everything with the media, and then he could just be this different person. And anybody that would question whether players would be able to turn on that kind of style and have, he obviously had a couple of different personalities when he had to, and it's going to be sad to see him go, but I'd be amazed from the way he was talking if he's not back with Waterford in the near future, but maybe with someone else even before that.
Okay, so just to finish up on Munster then, I think the match programmes have been very interesting to look at over the past few weeks, because the players that have been featured have often been asked to pick their dream seven-a-side team. I think the standout one had to come from Peter Duggan. You saw that one.
That's right.
Go on, tell us what it is.
No, it was a very original one. He just went for Tony Kelly in all 7 positions, so he can obviously play in the goals as well.
We've got Dan Morrissey's one coming up on the screen here. I can't remember. Oh, there it is. Owen Kelly in the goals, who of course played, like we just had on there, he played minor in goals for Tipperary, or he was a sub-keeper in 2001 for Tipperary. For the seniors, JJ Delaney, not bad in full-back, Brian Lohan, Tony Brown, Kieran Carey, a legend of course, Ollie Moore, ball winner up there, and John Milan. I think we've got David Reedy as well coming up as well. Here he is now, yeah. Barry Nugent in goals. Not sure who that is. David Fitzgerald, who I presume he's talking about the current wing back for the Clare team. He's well able to move, as is Killian Buckley, Ronan Maher, Jamie Barron, Shane O'Donnell, and Shane Bennett.
Barry Nugent was a corner forward. He actually marked him back in the day. I don't know how he ended up in the goals there for Clare. Yeah. But,
well able to move from the
Club
goals.
mate, lads. Club mate.
Oh, is he? Right, okay. Does he deserve to be in there?
No comment.
So we've the three of us have all picked a seven-a-side team, a dream team, with the one caveat that we had to put ourselves into it.
And I will say that was the caveat, because there's no way I would have myself in my own team, but go on.
Well, look, to be fair, you have played inter-county, so you can justify it somewhat. I don't think I can at all. So we're going to get the first one up on screen here, and I'd say that'll be Verney's one. I'm looking forward to seeing this now and watch you justify it and us critique it. Go ahead, Verney, take it from there.
I have Owen Murphy in the goals because he's obviously flexible. He can come out he can play anywhere. He can play he can play any of the 6 outfield positions as well as in goals. He's going to ping the puck outs as well.
To you?
Hopefully, yeah, not to me. I'm going to have him to have one of those little things in his back pocket like Anna Kournikova used to have at Wimbledon, where she'd pull out another ball straight away when the ball goes wide. He'd definitely have one of them as well. The full back line was I wouldn't have myself there. I would have had Conor Gleeson, but I think you need a sticky corner back to take out the opposition's best forward. David Mack, brilliant hurler, very mobile as well, and could play in any of those positions. The midfield, it's disappointing that Jamie Barron has gone out of championship already, because everybody loves watching Jamie Barron. Massive energy there with him and Fitzgibbon. Fitzgibbon is playing some stuff. He was brilliant again the other night for the Cork under 21s. And then up front, you just have two absolutely lethal finishers. I'd hate to go near Joe on a 7-a-side pitch, or if you ever played out in America for summer, he'd just be an absolute disaster. Once he gets the ball, he's going to have even more space in Sevens game. Imagine the damage he could do, and Hoggy would be the same as well. Imagine the scores those two boys have had.
And you've played 7-a-side in the Croke Sevens, have you, as well?
Yeah, it's a different type of game completely. Yeah, you have to kind of play tactical enough. You can't really just go man on man. We played man on man the first day against, who was a Baha from Galway. And Joe Gantley. Joe Gantley got about 6 goals off me, I'd say. He was isolated one-on-one, and it's just a disaster. We pulled a man back then, kind of played 3 defenders, and when we attacked, we all attacked together, and we actually beat Aaron Shanater's club and Aaron Cunningham. Wolf Tones, yeah. We beat them and they ended up getting the semi-final, and then we were goose for the last match, and Clontarf, absolutely, I think it was Clontarf. One of those teams that absolutely annihilated us anyway. But it's a different type of game completely. And just on my team, I think you need a lot of mobility, particularly
to make up for you in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not moving from that corner.
James, any thoughts on his team? Anyone you'd think there's question marks over?
Apart from Verney himself, no. No, sure. Listen, I mean, you could pick any of those guys. Plenty of legs in the team, and as you said, two seriously good finishers up front.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll bring up my team there next as well, and of course, because I'm in it, it's an absolute disgrace of a team. It's really going to be let down. So I put Austin Gleeson in the goals, with the idea that we can score from anywhere here. So Gleeson he's going to come out on a burst. I'll step back in the goals. Hopefully no one will take a shot, because I'll make an absolute mess of it. Owen O'Donnell beside me, cornerback. Now, and a lot of the Dublin lads have told me that he is a nightmare to mark, and he gave Conor Whelan a fair go of it in the last round of the Leinster. Midfield, Jamie Barron. I think the way he helped set up Tommy Ryan's goal the other day, he was crowded by about 5 or 6 guys on the Cork on the sideline by Cork players. Still somehow managed to keep the ball going. I don't know how. If we get the team back up there again, Tony Kelly. I mean, if Peter Duggan is going to go with 7 Tony Kellys, I'm going to take at least one. Up front, 2 lefties, TJ Reid and Conor Whelan. That team is just not going to be beaten, Mick.
I'd fancy my team against it, to be honest with you. I think I'd go up corner forward on you if our two teams played that.
A combined age of the guts of 70, I'd imagine.
I'm a bit younger than you now, in fairness.
Yeah, only a year or two. You don't look at that. Jamesie, what do you make of my team?
Yeah, can't argue with it. Although I don't know, have you enough legs in your full forward line?
I would say I have more legs in the full forward line than yours. You've got Canning and Horgan. I think Conor Whelan would be impossible to stop. I think he's like the hurling version of Con O'Callaghan. And then TJ Reid beside him. TJ Reid, he'd win a ball anywhere. He'd win in a phone box. I
was trying to think of this pace. I had pace all around him, and maybe not as much in the full forward line. It was Conor Whelan or Canning for me, but Hoggy's not exactly slow now, in fairness, and Joe's not slow once he gets going either. No, hard to stop. I think both teams would be hard to stop. Obviously mine would win, as you say. Jamesie, we're going to get your team up lastly here. Explain it to us there, Jamesie.
Yeah, I can't see the screen now, lads, so I'm going this from memory. Again, I've got Owen Murphy in goals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Again, I think Michael's on the same page as me. I think he's the best goalie in the country. He'll ping it. He'll get up the field as well. He's played out the field, so he can come forward and someone else can step back. Daithí Burke and Pádraig Walsh. I think Dahi Burke is probably the one guy I'd least like to spend 70 championship minutes marking in the current game. So,
he'd soften your cough, wouldn't he?
He'd soften any of the opposition's cough as well. Yeah. so he's there in the full back line. Pádraig Walsh. Again, it was either him or David Mack, I suppose, and again, could either of them, but plenty of legs, the ability to get forward, score, get back. Midfield, Jamie Barron, we're all on the same page there, lads.
Yeah.
Who did I go for midfield with?
David Burke beside him. So you went with last year's All-Stars.
I reckon Burke would be able to ping the passes. He'd be able to hit that 70-80 yard pass in over the cornerback's head into your hand.
You've John McGrath and Tony Kelly up front.
Line, John McGrath and Tony Kelly, yeah. Actually, Tony have to be there somewhere, and McGrath is just a lethal finisher. But you could have gone with any of the forward lines that you picked. But I just think my team has plenty of legs, and Kelly just give it to McGrath and he'll put it away.
Yeah, well, the one thing you've omitted here is yourself, and you're the only one of us that could actually legitimately have a claim to be on one of these teams. So who are you dropping for yourself? You have to go in there in one of those positions. Come on now.
Jeez, I suppose I'll drop Kelly, lads. I'll substitute one Clare man for another, right?
Like for like.
Yeah, we could always put Kelly to midfield and get rid of David Burke. So, we'll maybe go with that actually. I want Kelly in the team, so David Burke has to go.
Right.
I tell you what, I'm not sure if 7-a-side would suit Dahi Burke. Genuinely.
Yeah.
I think he needs. He hasn't been not exposed, but there hasn't been low ball has not went in near his man yet this year. Probably because Gearóid Mack slips back on the 45. I don't know if that would suit him, and I think, just going on to a broader topic, that if teams want to try and get at Galway, bringing Gearóid away from the centre and somehow getting low ball inside Dahi Burke, maybe if Richie Hogan was back to himself, that sort of player could do a bit of damage on him. That's just something I think myself. I'm not sure if 7-a-side would suit him. He'd kill you, all right, but I'm not sure if it would suit him like that. But I just think that's one of the few ways you could actually get at Galway.
I'd say Jamesie's pace back in the day would have killed a few people as well. Jamesie, did you play 7-a-side, and what do you think is the most crucial factor for a team to be successful there?
We played in '96. Clare were obviously gone out of the championship early, so we went up. I think we had 8 players, and I think the brother-in-law who played minor with us in 1990 hadn't picked up a hurling in about 6 years. He'd travelled in that. We literally, I think, roped him in to be I think he might have been the 8th player. I think we had only 8 players or something. We hadn't a clue. But we'd Shawnee was playing. I think David Hoy would have hurled with Clare. Andrew Whelan was a really, really good pacey player. But we got to the semi-final and got absolutely annihilated, I think, by Crokes. But we hadn't the bull's notion how to play it. And, certainly, we anything you weren't supposed to do, we probably did. But it was an eye-opening experience, and it was a great weekend. Really enjoyed it.
So just to finish up then, Jamesie, which of our teams do you think is the best?
Definitely mine, lads.
You go air that.
Definitely.
Actually, we forgot to mention as well, Michael he absolutely insisted that we put up an all-time Offaly 7-a-side team, which is going to come up here. And James, you can comment off the back of it, but Mick, first of all, explain this to us, because it's quite indulgent of you, I must say.
Don't bother, yeah. Damien Martin's obviously the first ever Offaly All-Star, probably the best goalkeeper we've ever had, I'd say. Brian Whelan, Jamesy knows all about him, the best hurler I've ever seen. Martin Hannamy is the toughest cornerback I've ever seen. There will not be too many goals scored there. Rory Hannafy, if he'd been on a better Offaly team, he would have just been he was one of the only players I felt when I was playing this lad, he would be a certainty on the Kilkenny team, and that's the Kilkenny team. Alongside Johnny Pilkington, so Johnny would kind of sit back and kind of do his thing, and Rory would be up and down. Johnny Dooley and his nephew Shane beside him, I always said that if Shane was on that 94-98 team, he would have absolutely cleaned up, because he would have had workers around him to throw him out ball. I think he would have cleaned up. He would have been hitting 1-3, 1-4 a game. So it's maybe a little alternative. I would love to have John try on it, but I'm not sure if he would have had the legs for 7s. He would have had the skill, definitely, but I'm not sure if he would have had the legs.
Jamesy, is there anyone he's left out there that you think should be making the 7?
Yeah, John Troy was class. I'm not sure if Hennamy would have had the legs for the 7s either, but as Verney said, he'd kill you. Asher, look at this, and Whelan, Johnny Dooley. Yeah, you couldn't argue with most of those guys. And look at those guys, regardless of whether it was 7s, 11s or 15s, just pure hurlers, hurling coming out of every pore. So yeah, plenty of class on that side.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Jamesie. We'll chat to you again soon.
All right, lads, take care.
Yeah, Ger Gilroy has tweeted in saying we're missing a big chance to put John Troy in goals. Sweeper extraordinaire.
That's not a bad idea, especially coming from Kildare, man. That's actually a remarkable idea.
Well, what a perfect segue. Now, I'll read a couple of messages first, but we have an interview with a Kildare hurler coming up in just a minute. But just a few of the messages that are coming in. And if you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, whatever it is, send your messages in and we'll read them out. So, first message, lads, I can smell 2005 all over again. This is Cork's years. 13 years is too long. John in Clonakilty. Can you ask Jamesie what he makes of the Banners bottle? Do they have it in them to win big games this year, Paul? Sorry, I just let him go. What can you do? And the last one, lads, if Waterford win an All-Ireland in the next 3 or 4 years, Derek McGrath will deserve a serious amount of the credit. So he will. So this weekend, there are a couple of big finals in Croke Park. We've got the Christy Ring Cup final between London and Kildare tomorrow, the Nicky Rackard final as well, Donegal and Warwickshire, and the Laurie Maher final between Sligo and Lancashire. So first of all, the sides have met the last 4 years in a row, London and Kildare. There's some interesting players in the London team. I noticed Cillian Burke, who's won Munster twice with Cork. He's in there. He was on the bench against Waterford last year in the All-Ireland semi-final. You have Aaron Sheehan actually from the Cork 21s, Colin Nelson from Clare, and Kevin Reid at 6 as well from Johnstown in Kilkenny. On the other side, I actually just wonder with Kildare, they've good players like Niall Munacon, James Burke, who we're going to get an interview with shortly. Jack Sheridan got a couple of goals the last day. But if they had Conor and Niall Kenny, who transferred to Borrisoleigh down in Tipperary, Conor was on the senior tip panel, and the likes of Jerry Keegan, they'd be quite a common force.
Well, Jerry Keegan played Railway Cup a couple of years ago, and he's like, any of them will tell you. I was chatting to Neil Winnicott at the All-Stars last year, and he's just saying, like, God, if we had this guy, like, he's their best hurler, and he's a brilliant forward. So a massive loss. But yeah, I think it's going to be very, very tight, yeah. I know London relegated Kildare from 2A earlier on in the year, and Joe Quaid has kind of gone on the record to say that they put all their eggs in the basket of the league in 2017, and when they didn't get promoted, kind of fell flat. And this year they kind of took the opposite approach, and he wasn't sure whether to be able to turn it back around, but he said that he was very happy with how they've turned around. They've won their 4 games in the Christy Ring so far, beat Derry pretty comprehensively the last day, and a couple of those players you said, Jack Sheridan, Brian Byrne, these guys, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. London put up a serious score against Wicklow, though. It was 2-24, and Aaron Sheehan I think hit 12 points. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of interesting matchups. Disappointing it's probably not on live. It's on the TG4 YouTube channel, and I know Joe Quaid has said that's something he's upset about as well. Like, the exposure that it's gotten is pretty awful. And just another thing as well, the winners, which I cannot get my head around, the winners play the following week
against
to be promoted, or it's for against Antrim to be promoted, for Antrim to be relegated or for them to be promoted. So can you tell me, it makes no sense to me whatsoever, those lads, if they win a cup, they should at least be able to go out for 3 or 4 nights and enjoy themselves. If they win a cup, they have a match the following week, which is more important probably than the one they played the previous Sunday.
And neither of them would have a game the following Sunday after that again. So there's no reason that there can't be 2 weeks
whatsoever. None. Joe Quaid has said it. I have a piece with him in tomorrow's paper where he just said it's like a box ticking exercise, and that is what it looks like. There is no rush in that game whatsoever. Like, if you won a county title on Sunday, like, you'd love to go around to the schools, you'd love to go out for 3 or 4 nights. Like, that's what you remember. You don't want to have the plug pulled on a Tuesday because you have a match the following week. Like, it's madness. Like,
yeah, that's true. And actually, James Burke is a wing forward for Kildare. He's going to start tomorrow against London. Earlier in the year, he was actually on death's door, and we've an interview coming up with him now. He came on in the semi-final against Derry. He was actually crucial. I think he scored 4 points, including 2 frees. So I caught up with him earlier in the week, and this is what he had to say. James Burke, Kildare hurler. Just a few months ago, you were winning a Fresher Cup with DCU. A few weeks later, at the end of March, can you tell us what happened?
I got diagnosed with bacterial meningitis, and I was very ill, critically ill really, and I was in hospital for 12 days, kind of just, I went in, suppose, I was working in a camp, it was just a week after we won the Fresh with DCU, went into a camp, and it was Tuesday, came home from it, was just feeling tired, I suppose, unusually, like, I'd normally be fairly energetic and stuff. Then Wednesday, came back from the same camp again, and I had a headache and a temperature. Again, we didn't really think much of it, just thought it was going to be kind of flu or something, kind of flu-like symptoms. Then Wednesday night, I was up all night vomiting, and then Thursday evening, then I didn't go into work, and I had a pain in my side, and yeah, I had difficulty breathing. And then my parents brought me to the GP, and then he sent me on to the hospital. Into the hospital, then things started to escalate very quickly. I started getting real lethargic, pains all over my body. I wasn't really talking sense. My eyes started becoming vacant and stuff. And then they just kind of feared for the worst. They brought me in. The doctor checked me first, and I had a rash as well on my arm, and he checked the rest of my body, found the rash on my feet. So then they kind of thought, right, they knew it was serious. They kind of had an idea, so they put me on 5 antibiotics, and they put me in an induced coma. So, and they started working on me then. Saturday night, they knew it was, then they diagnosed as bacterial meningitis type B because bacteria grew in my blood culture. Then I started reacting to then they put me on 1 antibiotic for type B, and I started to react positively. And then Sunday took me out of the induced coma, and spent the rest of the week in isolation in ICU. Then I got out, and that was it. Ever since then, I've been making, slowly but surely getting there, and back hurling now. So.
You're downplaying some of that because it was incredibly serious at times. Can you tell me how aware you were of the fact that you had to go into an induced coma, and if you were aware, what were your thoughts?
Well, I didn't really. When I woke up from the coma on Sunday, I didn't know where I was.
Did you know you'd be getting an induced coma?
No, I didn't know. Because once I got into the hospital and was sitting in A&E, that's when the swelling of the brain kind of was getting real serious, and I just didn't, I can't remember anything really, So, and the swelling of the brain was so severe, I couldn't even, they were supposed to do a lumbar puncture to check as well, but they said that the risk far outweighed the benefits, so they couldn't even do that. So it was quite serious.
And do you remember waking up, or what was that moment like?
Yeah, I briefly remember. I can remember parts of it. I can remember obviously seeing my mum and dad when I woke up, and they were kind of just telling me what happened, but they were downplaying it, so I wouldn't be too worried, because I was very tired, and obviously from all the antibiotics. So again, I just didn't really, took a few days to click what happened then when I was getting better and getting more sleep and recovering, and that's kind of when I started to understand what happened.
And did you hear afterwards that there was a mass on the Sunday, and there were a huge amount of people there, because it was very touch and go, and people thought that there was a good chance that you weren't going to make it?
Yeah, I did. Well, a few of my friends came up to me, and they actually told me, and it was when my mum and dad gave me back my phone as well, so they didn't want me seeing things or looking up what had happened. So when they handed it back to me, they kind of said, right, you might see things on social media about a mass that was had for you, and they just said, don't worry about it. It was all positive, which obviously I kind of knew. So I'm obviously grateful and very appreciative of everyone that attended the mass and prayed for me, and hopefully, no doubt, it helped, I suppose.
And how many were at that mass? I heard it was packed out, and every young hurler, I believe, in the county was there.
Well, I don't have a number, obviously, but people said it was packed out. There was 2 or 3 rows of people standing, and they said they've never seen so many young people at a mass. Everyone in their club jerseys or county tops or whatever, and GAA gear. So, again, very nice gesture, and it helped.
Do you find it hard to believe that was happening, that all the while you're there in a coma in a hospital and this is going on? It must be surreal.
Oh yeah, it's very surreal. I couldn't really believe it. But Father Lee Morgan as well, he was very good. He came up to me as well a few times, visited me in hospital, so I'm not surprised that he organised it. Really, he's an absolute gent, a very nice man, and again, I'd like to thank him.
And does it change? People often talk about something major happens in their life and it changes their perspective, but the fact that you were probably unaware of most of what's happening, has it changed your perspective?
It has changed slightly. Obviously I was unaware, but it's made me more grateful for things, and obviously even playing sport, things could have gone a lot wrong. Could have, a lot of people lose limbs or get disabilities, and obviously I'm just delighted that I'm fortunate enough to be back playing what I love, and I don't know where I'd be without hurling as well. It'd be a completely different life if I didn't.
And what other details have you found out since? You told me that it's only yesterday that your parents kind of filled you in on some of the details of what was happening.
Yeah, there was only that was kind of more the small details, but obviously I didn't know a lot when I came out. The doctors and my parents had told me not to research it, so I kind of listened to them for a month or two, but then it comes to the stage where you kind of want to know how serious it was and what could have gone wrong and what actually happened. So
tell us how badly could it have gone?
Yeah, well, obviously there's the risk that something like could be the most serious case is obviously you'd die or something, and the losing the limbs and anything like disability, lose hearing, lose sight, any of that is I don't know it all, but just briefly looked, but again I try not to dwell on the past as well. I look forward and forget about it and live the rest of my life as well. And
your health is good now?
Yeah, health's back to 100%. Well, what I consider 100% anyway. So, back training, back playing, sat my exams in college, doing everything again, back working and everything. So, feel 100%.
And you came back hurling for Kildare this year as well. You're playing in the Christy Ring Cup final on Sunday against London. Can you tell us about making your comeback to training?
Yeah, so I came back, I think it was about a week and a half before the Wicklow game.
Which was the quarter-final?
Essentially a quarter-final. Last stage of the round robin, but essentially quarter-final. And so when I first came back, I was obviously fitness levels, they weren't as bad as I thought they'd be, but obviously, I was lacking that bit of energy. But the management and the players, they made it easier to come back. And, the managers have always been telling me to mind yourself. They've kind of been monitoring what I've been doing. Haven't always been doing at the start, I wasn't always doing a full session. If I looked tired or something, they'd tell me to sit out and take a few minutes off and then come back in whenever you feel like it. So I'm getting that help because I couldn't flog myself in the first few weeks and risk having a reaction, because that's what they said. They said to kind of take it easy, ease yourself back in, because they did say a minimum of 8 weeks, and I was back on the 8 weeks as well. So they said it depends on the person. Some people could be up to 6 months. So I said I'd go back after 8 weeks anyway and see how I am, and thankfully it was all good.
And your coach Shane O'Brien, he told me that you came on in the semi-final against Derry, gave an excellent display as well. How pleasing was that?
Obviously it was nice to get back on the field and obviously get a few points and make an impact, which I hope I did. So it was great, and obviously especially beating Derry and getting to an All-Ireland, essentially an All-Ireland final in Croke Park, it's something special and surreal, really.
So you'd be pushing for a start now. I mean, Croke Park, it's tantalising, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Obviously I'm pushing for the start. It'd be a dream come true really if I got to start in Croke Park, especially back in April. I wouldn't have thought I would have even played any games, so if I got to start in Croke Park, it really would be surreal.
Well, best of luck with that, James. Yeah.
Thanks a million. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, fantastic story. And as it turns out, he is getting the start. Joe Quaid has named him in the starting 15 tomorrow. Amazing stuff, isn't it?
It's unreal. Joe actually said to me that the plan was that a couple of months ago, that if they got to the Christy Ring final and they did happen to win it, that they'd send him up with Brian Byrne to lift the cup, and he couldn't believe that he's back on the field now and he's actually starting the biggest game of the year. Sure, it's a great story. Yeah,
it's fantastic, and that's a huge match at Croke, especially having it at Croke Park tomorrow. So London Kildare, but there's a couple of other big games as well. The Nicky Rackard final between Donegal and Warwickshire at 4, and the Laurie Maher final between Sligo and Lancashire at 12. They're huge days for those guys.
Massive, yeah. As I said, it's disappointing that they're not live on TV, but I'd say the great Buff Egan will be up there and everyone will be following his Snapchats for the day. Just on the Donegal game even, I know the captain from Donegal, Danny Cullen, he would have started playing with Donegal when he was 15.
He actually briefly hurled for Akula in 2012 as well. Yeah, he appeared in the county final, so I hurled with him for a while as well. Yeah, very good hurler.
Yeah, and he was always on the NUAG Fitzgibbon team when he was there as well, which probably would have been unheard of for a Donegal fella. So that it's massive for him. Warwickshire, it's actually a mad achievement. They won the Laurie Maher last year, won Division 3A league, and have now progressed all the way to the Nicky Rackard final, and Liam Watson hasn't been playing with them to date. I assume he's not playing Sunday either, so that's a remarkable achievement for them. That should be a cracker of a game, even though I would favour Donegal to come out by 2 or 3. And in the other game you have Sligo. Then Keith Raymond is like Danny Cullen. I think he's been playing since he was 14 or 15, I think, which is mad as well.
Is it one of his parents or both of his parents are from Killinall and Tipperary, and they were trying to drag him down to the tip back in the other
That's right, yeah. That's going to be an interesting one. Anyone who who reads the papers every Monday, Ronan Crowley from Lancashire puts up like 15 points is normal for him in every game. So that's going to be an interesting one. Based on results kind of so far, Lancashire will probably be favourites to win that as well. But it should be it should be a great day. Yeah,
cracking day in Croke Park. So the next thing we're going to come to is the idea of VAR in hurling, because we've seen it in the World Cup and I think it works quite well. It slows up the games now and again, but I think it's important to get the right decision, and it's actually kind of compelling to even watch it happen. So when you consider what happened with Jason Ford's goal, where Austin Gleeson didn't carry it over the line but a goal was given, if you think of the Cork versus Clare match in Munster when Patrick Horgan flicked the ball back in and was it?
You reckon it was wide?
Well, it could have been.
Yeah,
and this is the thing, you can't say definitively, neither can I.
True,
And then even for the under-21s the other night, I think Tommy Walsh for Kilkenny under-21s, he hit a long ball.
That was blatantly obvious. Like the keeper who had been waving balls wide all night actually had his hurl up like that. It was clear that it went over. Like it was unbelievable.
I often say to goalkeepers, the last thing you should ever do is tap the hurley against the crossbar. Number one, I think it's like a shot of dopamine for the opposing team because it's letting them know the ball has gone over. Never ever do that. The ball is
frustrating. It's infuriating watching keepers going like that and run out to the post when it goes over the black spot every time. But no, I get what you mean. Yeah, psychologically.
Would you like to see VAR come into hurling just to eradicate any of these contentious issues?
I would. Yeah, I would, in the sense that the chances of injustices are reduced an awful lot. Where would it be available realistically? Realistically, Croke Park. If you're looking at Hawkeye, I would say realistically Croke Park and probably Thurles at the moment. I don't think Páirc Uí Chaoimh has it. Has Páirc Uí Chaoimh?
No, I don't think. Maybe it has.
You'd be looking for, well, definitely for those two main venues. Realistically, that's where the big games are going to happen. You definitely don't want anything like that happening in a big game, a really big game.
It's so high stakes. I mean, teams are training for 8-9 months, putting their lives on hold. I was looking at an article from Seán Boylan in the Times when he was talking about some of the costs, and he reckoned that if it was to be rolled out in all the main venues countrywide, it would cost in the region of 3 million, so that it has the range of options as well, within it, because, for example, Thurles doesn't have the big screen that shows you the image to go along, whereas Croke Park does. And he said that to operate, it's between 7,000 and 8,000 per match. So I crunched the numbers, I had the old calculator out. There's about 30 games in hurling this year, so that'd be about $250,000 just on operating fees alone. In football, it's something like 72 games. I just had a quick scan over. I could be out.
What will the journalists do if there's no controversy to talk about, or human error to talk about?
We'll just talk about how slow it is. That's what they're doing in the World Cup coverage, in between that Maroon 5 ad that won't stop constantly, where he's singing "Don't Worry About a Thing." Oh, it's horrendous, the Hyundai ad. But so that would be like $250,000 on the hurling alone, maybe the guts of 550k on the football. So is this something that you could justify? Yes, we need to get the decisions right, but is that something, when you think of all the funds being raised and where the money needs to go, is it worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, it's a bit mad. It's a bit mad when you put it like that, and you maybe consider how some players are out of pocket in different scenarios and getting expenses of like 50 cent or gone up a small bit, maybe, things like that. I don't think so yet, to be honest with you. I think we could. One thing we could do is train our umpires an awful lot better than they are, if much training is happening at all.
You've been an umpire, I presume, at some game, even an under-14 game or an under-12 game, and I know it's high stakes, obviously, inter-county, and they're far more tuned in, but like I've often been asked to be an umpire, and you're only half tuned in, because it's kind of a boring situation.
Yeah, and you just stand by your decision.
Yeah, and you have the worst view in the place for the general play.
Yeah, and you might know after a couple of seconds that your decision is wrong.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to stand by it. And it is a disaster, but at inter-county level, those guys should definitely be getting trained. It shouldn't be just any, Tom, Dick or Harry kind of coming up and doing it like.
But let's talk about the logistics then as well. I mean, just very briefly, because if you think about the goal line technology, the one for Austin Gleeson carrying over the line, that requires a very different Hawkeye system than to going over the bar. And then the one that I mentioned where Patrick Horgan kept the ball in for Lahan, that was outside the goals altogether. That was 5 or 6 yards to the side. So we're going to Hawkeye up the whole place.
Well, that's the thing, you see, you have a line ball decision as well. And I've noticed actually a lot. And the linesmen who were doing the Clare and Limerick game, I thought, were very good on Sunday. Nowadays, there's this kind of temptation. It's not a temptation, it happens the whole time. When a player goes anywhere near the sideline with the ball in his hand, the flag is up. Like, and obviously, like, he's maybe in line with it or just inside, but once he goes near that line, that's it. In fairness to the boys the other day, they were very, very vigilant on it, and they were looking at the ball, not his hand or his leg or his hurl or anything like that. And the player didn't look like he carried the ball out at any stage, so he didn't blow. But that's something that they just seem to be blowing for the whole time now.
Possibly to stop shemazzles, because that's where most shemazzles happen in hurling.
Yeah,
I think
what a great hurling word.
I love a good shemazzle. So speaking of shemazzles, I'd say Seán Boylan has been in them plenty of times over the years with that roughhousing Meath team he had. But I'd say a lot of people have forgotten that he hurled for the Royals for about 20 years. I spoke with him about his passion for hurling earlier in the week. Seán, for how many years did you play hurling?
I played hurling for Meath for 21 years, and my final year, the 22nd year, I was player manager, and I really enjoyed that, and probably was as fit then as I was from the very start, but I couldn't pick myself. No, I couldn't do that. But it was just an incredible experience, and the friendship that you made all through those years was amazing. But there were some great players, and when we played first, you see, we were in the Leinster Championship proper, so you were playing likes against sort of Wexford and Kilkenny's and so on, as well as Laois and Offaly and so on, and Dublin. And remember Dublin beating us 21 points one day, Kilkenny beating us 33, but you were still able to go out on the Monday and poke around again and try and improve. And coming off the field that day, we're beating 33 points. One of the lads saying, geez, we weren't so bad. I said, go away, we were absolutely rubbish. But at the same time, you had that chance and that ambition always to play it at a higher level. That was always the thing. And it was, Meath before 1949 was a huge deal. It was a traditional hurling county. And so many of the lads, Mick O'Brien and Brian Smith, who captained the team in 49, they were all great. They were all great hurlers, and they won, All Ireland junior titles in 1948 and so on. But it's just that when football took over. But I still loved hurling, and even in the school I went to school, partly the primary and then secondary in Belvedere College, and it would be known as a rugby school. But Father Diffley and the Common Gaelic, we played hurling. Now, it's a strange thing about hurling is I think it's like somebody playing a guitar. You bring it everywhere with you. And if you go to my car today, the hurley's still in the boot of the car.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're always looking for a few pucks. You know what I mean?
You still puck around?
Oh yeah, you would, yeah. Well, you see, Orna's playing for the club. And Orna's 14, he's our youngest boy. And he's tidy enough, and so on. But you always feel in hurling that it's something that you can play, like playing golf or playing tennis for all your life.
Mm. So, who would you have had any clashes with some big teams and big names back when you were still playing with Meath? Did you push Galway close one year?
In the hurling?
Yeah.
We did, but I suppose one of the big things was when Desi Snitchy Ferguson, when I was a student in Waterford in Agricultural College, I cycled into Dunshaughlin, it was an awful wet morning and windy morning. I said, if I cycle up the other 7 miles up home, I won't be able to play. And I got off the bike and I put it against the wall. Next minute, a Ford Prefect car pulls up, and because I had the bag and I had the hurley, and this man opens the and he said, listen son, do you want a lift? And the son was Snitchy Ferguson. And of course later on that year they played in the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Final against Tipperary, and Desi was centre half back and his brother Liam was on it, and you had the Foley's on it, and you had the drum ghouls and the bootmans. You had all these sets of brothers that were on the team, and of course Des and Lar Foley and so on. And it was a huge thing, but I always remember walking down the day of the All-Ireland final, and Ackle Boot was one side, right? And but there the lads, they were walking down sort of with the crowd, with the kit bag and the hurley in their hand, so different than it is today with the escorts in and so on. But again, the influence that Des would have had when he came, because he was a teacher in Oldcastle and he lives in Kells for a lifetime, and his son Terry, Barry, they won All-Ireland with us in 1987, but he brought something else, something different to it, and even to be playing alongside him or playing in front of him was a huge thing, because here he was, this man was king of the castle, you know what I mean, and he'd won sort of two All-Ireland footballs in 58 and 63 with Dublin, but he was a hurling man and still a hurling man, still goes to hurling matches, and he's hit the ninth decade now, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's lovely to see, but I think there's something about that hurling. And but again, I remember one time back in 68, 69, meeting up with Eddie Kerr an awful lot, and I was always fascinated the way on a Monday after they played on a Sunday that he would go out and he would practice maybe 60 times something that went wrong the day before, and that's sort of an outlook, and that's sort of an attitude, and he would say, right, sure, the next day something else goes wrong, but he would practice at that as well. And it's sort of indelible when you hear from people who are absolutely, outstanding players themselves, that modesty that is there, that it just doesn't happen. It's the more the practice, the better they got. And it's funny how when you get involved with players of that ilk, how much you learn from. It's like that famous Wexford team that the records and so on. In 1949 championship, they played against me. They scored 4 goals. Me scored 13 points. Willie Goodison and all those were playing. But there was the famous Nicky record, playing full forward for the other football team as well. You know what I mean? But they played duel, and that was great. And we would have found, even in our own teams, the teams that I was involved with, and particularly sort of the 96 squad, sort of Conor Martin, Mark O'Reilly, Darren Fay, Donald Curtis, Anna McManus, Jimmy McGuinness, Jody Devine, Barry Callan. They all played county hurling for me, and I always felt that the hurling gave them really quick hands, and Terry Ferguson was the same, going back to the 87 squad and so on. And it's I hate to see it too isolated. There has to be a room somewhere along the line that you can still play the game of hurling as well. You might be able to practice as much, but if you're a hurling man, you'll still be practicing at the end wall of the house. You could have 60 acres around you, but it's up against the end wall of the house is where you keep practicing. Or even if you break a window, it was a good shot. You know what I mean? So it happened with Oran last year. Lord, he absolutely, a bullseye right through just a small little pane. And of course, Tina, his mammy, was going mental. You know what I mean? Jesus, that was a great shot. Yes, I sort of aimed for it. I sort of had a guy aimed at it. You know what I mean? But that's, I think hurling is like that. I think it's just so much of our DNA, and I just think that's the way it even has become such a worldwide sport now today. Like it always was, but it's gone to the masses today, and it'll grow, and I think that's just lovely to see it. And so when you see, say, the championship that you've had this year, it's been such a success because people have had a feast of it, but the quality, the class, the skill, the ambition to do well, that thing is supporting your county. At the same time, taking the toughest thing that you can take, or the hardest best you can take, trying to get that sliotar and trying to do what's right with it. I think that's so manly, and I just think it's such a preparation for the rest of your life, and it prepares you for everything that you have to do.
Would you have a favourite memory from hurling yourself?
I suppose one of the ones that's always indelible to me is John Fenton's goal, that famous goal that John put on against Limerick.
Against Limerick when he whipped on it from 40 yards.
Yeah. And I remember one time I spoke about it on a radio show. It was about 5 memories. And Tina was talking about the 5 memories. With me she said, now, he'll surely mention us at home herself and the 6 kids, right? So when I arrived home, and she said, by the way, John Fenton can make your dinner, But it was like there's so many of them. Like there's so many. I told you about sort of that time Art Foley had that extraordinary save. But over the years, even our club wear the Kilkenny colours because a man called Bob O'Keefe was the school teacher in Dunboyne when Dunboyne won 5 senior championships. And he went on to become president of the GAA in 1935 because he was living in Boris at that time, Boris, Austria.
And the Leinster title was
there. And the Leinster title, that's right. And he was on that team, but he was sort of, that's what put the structure on the hurling in Dunboyne. And yet in our same parish, Kilbride, the outer part of the parish, those lads won 5 senior titles: Marty Quinn, Jack Quinn, Jerry Quinn, Murty Sullivan, all those lads. And they all won Ireland in 67, went to Australia. So that combination of the two sports, I think they work so well together. And it'd be a shame, like, even to see the way it is with Dublin at the moment, that combination, that crossover, I think that's terrific.
Who's going to win the All-Ireland this year?
Well, in the hurling, back in April, I felt that Limerick would do it. So that's why I had to go. That's what it is. Galway have been immense. They have been absolutely, even the way they've come on since they got the shackles off their back. And I suppose it's hard to see them beaten, but I have to stick by what I went by at the start. You know what I mean? That's the way life is. And but there's so many teams can win it now. There's no such thing as a cast iron certainty. If someone was to say, my goodness, Tipperary going out of the championship, you couldn't see it happening with the way they came back in some of the matches that they played. But that's what sport is.
The intoxicating dulcet tones of Seán Boylan. You could listen to him all day. Right, we're going to preview the match of the weekend and look at some of the odds with Boylsport here. Go to offtheball.com/Boylsports. Joined in the studio by Ger Gilroy. Ger, how are you doing?
Very well.
And over Skype, we've got Leon Blanche of Boylsports. How are you doing, Leon?
Not doing too bad, lads. How are you?
By God, you're looking well.
Sure, we always scrub up well those dubs, you know.
Where's the top hat, though? I thought you weren't allowed to take the top hat off.
Listen, you're allowed to take it off in the press room, Ger. It'd be too warm to wear it in here now, you know. I think it's 25 or 26 degrees out there today. Not for the faint-hearted.
No doubt you've got a sceptre as well that you just hop off the ground every time you enter and exit a room. Leon, we'll go straight into the betting. Is there any match that you're particularly looking forward to, a bet that you particularly fancy?
Well, I suppose, look, listen, 3 football finals on this weekend, starting tomorrow night down in Munster. Cork against Kerry. I think Kerry will win the game, and I think Kerry probably, they're 1 to 3 shots to beat Cork, so there's no real value in backing them at that type of price. But I think Kerry -4 at 10 to 11. I'm excited about this young Kerry team. I think the All-Ireland might come a year too early for them this year, but I think next year I think they'll be a real challenger, and I fully expect them to beat Cork, and I expect them to beat Cork with a little bit in hand.
Clare were beaten with, Kerry put 32 points up on Clare. Do you fancy them to pass the spread there, 4 points?
I do, and I think the other bet that in that game is good is Kerry to win both halves at 11 to 8. I think that if it's close, Kerry will still be ahead at half time, and it's not going to be close at the end. I just expect that this Kerry team have a lot about them. We had Micheál Quirk on OTBAM during the week, and he made the point that 5 or 6 of the starting Kerry team don't have Munster medals, so it's not like it's the 5th or 6th in a row for them. They'll be hungry. They're also brilliant. Sean O'Shea looks like he might be an all-timer, like unheralded when you consider how heralded David Clifford was, but it's possible they found a proper successor to Declan O'Sullivan, and you're adding that into the team that already has everything else. And I don't know, they've got the best forward line in the country if everybody's fit at the moment. Yeah,
it's possibly what they need, Seán O'Shea's. But Kerry are looking for a 6 in a row, and back in 1983 Kerry had won 8 in a row, and it was the one time Cork thought there's no hope that we're actually going to beat them today, we'll go out and keep the score down, and they actually managed to turn them over. Is this the weekend it happens?
They are definitely a lot better than they were last year. Seem to have a good defensive structure, don't look like they're leaking as many scores, and there's definitely an awful lot more confidence. But I think, like, realistically, when you come down to brass tacks, who's going to put more on the scoreboard? And I think Kerry have the potential to put a big score up, have the potential to put a 118 or a 119 up, and if they put something like that up, they'll be winning by 6 or 7. So yeah, I like the -4, and to win both halves. I think they'll probably just edge the first half and maybe pull away then. Yeah,
Leon, looking at the Ulster final as well, we've got Fermanagh against Donegal. What are the odds there?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm looking at Donegal. They're a 6 to 1 on chance to beat Fermanagh, who are 5 to 1. And Donegal have been scoring a lot and plenty from play. They've expanded their game. They're not afraid to go and attack teams, which is refreshing to see from an Ulster side. But I think Fermanagh will have a game plan. I think they'll try and nullify the space. And I think looking at the handicap, Fermanagh are getting a 6-point head start. So I think for me, Fermanagh +6 at 10 to 11 is probably the way I'd play in the Ulster final. I do feel Donegal will win the Ulster final, but I think just +6, it's a fair enough head start.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful bet. Just like the guy who walked past you there a second ago with an unbelievable top hat there. +6 seems like the clear bet here. Rory Gallagher's going to know how to shut down this Donegal team, you'd imagine. If they manage to shut down Monaghan the last day, that's got to be the bet.
Yeah, you'd imagine it's going to be very, very tight. Donegal aren't going to get anywhere near the scores that they've put up yet this year. I'd like to know what the combined aggregate score is of the two of them together, or what that bet is as well, because it's going to be low enough. I'd say it was 1-8 to 10 points the last day. Fermanagh have conceded on average, I think, 11 points in every game this year, apart from the Division 3 league final. Like, there's not going to be a big aberration where they're going to concede 117 or something like that. It's going to be tight, and +6 is a lot in football. So yeah, I'd fancy that +6 as well.
Leon's under a small bit of pressure. I think he needs to get to the starting post. So Leon, just as well in the Leinster final as well, who's going to win that?
Well, look, there's no doubt who's going to win it.
Did you just ask who's going to win the Leinster final? We're going to clip that one for.
Yeah.
You've no respect, Joe. You've no respect for Laois.
Look, you're just looking at the handicap, and I suppose if you're a first goal scorer man, you're looking at Dean Rock, or you're looking at Fenton, or you're looking at Mannion scored a peach in the semi-final, and he's well capable of that. But the handicap again is 16 for the Leinster final. Our lads nearly got it spot on for the semi-final when there was only a point in the difference, and I think probably Laois plus 16 might just be able to come under the spread. I think it'll be a walk in the park for the Dubs again, which is not good for them, but I think they'll beat Laois, beat them comfortably, but I just give Laois the plus 16. And for my first goal scorer, I'll go with Mannion to open the scoring. And obviously, if there's a goal scored within inside the first 10 minutes, we will double the odds on all bets on the GAA games. Just another game, lads, before I leave ye. I think Tipperary against Mayo in the qualifier, I was kind of looking at one where I might see a little bit of an upset. I give Tipperary a chance at home. They're a 5-1 chance to win the match outright, but they're getting a 5-point head start at home against Mayo. I like that. I'm going to take Tip plus 5 at 11-10 against Mayo in the football qualifier over the weekend.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Leon. Go and win yourself some money, and you can share it out among us next week. Thanks very much.
Well, lads, there is a very strong word for anyone out there in the Commonwealth Cup for Sioux Nation. It runs at 3:40, trained by Aidan O'Brien, will be ridden by Ryan Moore. He'll have the good to firm ground that he likes, and that's the one on track I'm hearing is very, very strong. Sioux Nation in the 3:40.
Okay, thanks for that, Leon, and enjoy the party that's no doubt going to happen.
You're a racing man. Is that a good bet, Sioux Nation?
Yeah, I won the Royal Ascot last year. Not a bad bet, yeah. It's trying to find the right Aidan O'Brien ones this week is the difficult thing, unfortunately.
Do you fancy that Tipperary plus 5 against Mayo at home?
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't either.
I'd agree with Ger there.
But you can't trust Mayo either. If the last couple of years have taught us anything, if they do get going, it's not going to be straight away in the qualifiers.
Well, they just did, so against Limerick. Does that count? Is that the one game where that's all they needed?
Maybe, but Limerick aren't exactly pulling up trees, and I know they beat them well.
Yeah, they were shambles, and the county board had that issue with the manager, and the manager had that issue with the county board rather in the immediate aftermath of going out against Clare. And they did get hammered by Clare, and then Clare got hammered as well. So, can't read too much into that. But is that all they need? One of those confidence-boosting performances. Lee Keegan is back, and suddenly, it's in Thurles. It's not like it's in a tight ground.
And last year as well, Tipperary were going quite well, and from the previous year they'd been in the All-Ireland semi-final, went to Thurles and ended up losing to Armagh. So
they were very poor against Cork.
There won't be a massive support either.
No, they were very poor against Cork. That was compared to under Liam Kearns, that was their worst performance by far. And it'll be interesting to see how they can lift things. But when you put the Tip players team down on paper, they have a serious outfit. It's just a lot of question marks about will that defeat have hurt them a lot?
Ger, your Kildare out this weekend at Pearse Park against Longford.
Odds on again, 15-8 on.
Ropey.
Longford are 2-1. I don't know. Longford are +2.
I think Kildare will pass that actually. And I know everyone says Longford, they're a Pearse Park team, but actually some of their biggest ever wins have been away from home.
Most of them have been on the road.
Against at Clonus, against Monaghan, away to Down, who they also beat at home in the qualifiers, away to Derry as well. So I suppose that heightens the task actually for Kildare, but I still think that Kildare have the class. Maybe that win will unleash them. They have got good players. They're not as bad as the last year suggested.
No, they're not as bad as that 12 games in a row that they lost.
Yeah.
But actually, the thing is that an away match against Derry where there's an early goal conceded, to come back from that and to play really well and to let the athleticism finally begin to show itself and to be free somehow from whatever it was that was giving them burden. So I don't think they're going to lose this weekend. You have a bit of confidence on the back of the Derry performance.
You have two teams going completely different levels. Longford are coming in after getting hammered, and Kildare are coming in after getting hammered the first day, we'll say, mentally, and now they're up on a high again. So yeah, you'd imagine Kildare get the job done there, but not going to be easy.
Just a point on the Laois, on the spread. I backed Dublin to cover the spread against Longford, and it's the most horrible way to watch a game where
you can't enjoy it at all.
But it's when it's that big, they scored the 2 early goals and you're okay, yeah, and then you're kind of watching it again, just kick the ball over the bar. Why are you trying to run this ball in like Arsenal?
Did they pass it by just as
2 points they were 69 minutes they hadn't made it, score at 70, and it's either way. In Longford, you think, one of these Longford lads is going to try a heroic 60-yarder and it's going to go over, and I'll be like, but he didn't. And then
it's funny though, you start doubting, like Kieran Kilkenny kicks a wide and you're like, Kieran's not, what's going on here? Like, and he's been the best player in Ireland the last couple of years.
6 points already.
Yeah, exactly.
They beat the spread by Wicklow by a point. It was 22 or something. They won it by 23.
So these spreads are very, very, very accurate at the moment.
We're being awfully disrespectful to Laois though.
One offer that people might be interested in is it's 50-1 for new customers on offtheball.com/boilsports rugby for Ireland to beat Australia.
What are you doing bringing up rugby in here?
I know, I figured I wouldn't be allowed. But
just to get back to the hurling team as well, Sligo have a guy playing in the Nicky Rackard, Gerald Kelly Lynch, who will be ferried from Croke Park to Markovich Park to play the qualifier against Armagh that evening as well. So that'll be another interesting
6 o'clock throw-in as well.
Yeah,
that's tough. Sligo are 5-2 to beat Armagh. I can't decide if Armagh have got something out of their system as well. They're 9-4 on. Like, would you be back in Armagh odds on?
Not really.
Not really.
I don't trust them. Can't trust them over Kieran McGeeney's 5 years. It's been very hard to kind of trust them really.
They have had a good run in the qualifiers, and just as well. I don't like saying it. I think Clare are a good bet away against Offaly in the qualifiers. Nigel Dunn is Offaly's best forward, and he's suspended. Clare, I think, hovering between 4-6 and 4-7. I'd be surprised. They should have been promoted. I know they were well beaten by Kerry.
I don't know. Just listening to Paul Rouse that night, we had him on the show on Off the Ball AM the Tuesday after the last victory, and it just sounded like this outpouring of emotion and joy, and everybody seems together, and you're like, that's dangerous, you know.
That's
like Clare will be in flicking the ball around, thinking we're superstars, and Offaly will just eat them for breakfast.
Offaly win a game, you get very excited. Doesn't matter which code it is.
I'm saying that Clare are going to win the game. I still think Clare will win the game. I think Clare have that game against Kerry. I think they tried to go against Kerry 15-on-15 and it didn't suit at all, and they got blown away. But this will be a different prospect. I don't like saying that, but that'll be a different prospect.
For a hurling show, we've talked some amount of football here, haven't we?
You're going to lose your credentials as hurling snobs.
I like Lancashire in the Lorimar at the weekend. They're around 8-11 against Sligo. Beat them already this year and won the Division 3B of the league. I think they'll be...
that's in Croker, is it?
That's in Croker. It's the first game in Croker.
You'll have a few shekels on it.
12 o'clock. We'll have a gawk on it, all right, yeah.
Yeah. Ger, any other bets? Are we happy enough with that?
No, Kerry to win both halves 11-8. Killian O'Connor to score a goal is 2-1. I think that if they are going to... I think that could be one of those free scoring matches. Don't think it's going to be either team sitting back and defending. So
big pitch as well. I think it should suit Mayo.
Yeah,
should do. Well, we'll have reporters all around the grounds at the weekends. On Sunday, the Ulster final, Donegal for Fermanagh. Dave McIntyre and Brian McGuigan will be there. The Leinster final, Dublin Laois, Jason Ryan will be there for us, and we'll also have reporters at Tip Mayo, Carlow and Tyrone, and Tomás O'Shea will be previewing the Munster final on OTB tomorrow as well. So that's it for the Hurling Show, which was brought to you in association with Boyle Sports. We'll be back again next week.